won't be able to control the player at all. And if this is checked, make sure this is unchecked. If this is checked, only the server will be able to control players and not a client. So just make sure this is checked and this is unchecked. Okay. Now I haven't really changed anything in here. This is just the standard network transform. This controls how much it updates, how fast it updates, which I've saw no reason to change that. But if you feel it's updating a bit slow, you could always move this up. Then we have the access what we want to sync, the rigid body 3D or the transform or rigid body 2D. If you're making a 2D game, sync the rigid body 2D. If you're making a 3D game or you're using physics, sync the rigid body 3D. If you're using the first person character controller, then sync the character controller. But if you're not using any of that and you're not using physics, just sync the transform, and that'll cut down on all the extra information going over the network and make your game run faster. But only if you're not using physics. And then, as a matter of fact, only sync the transform if you're not using a rigid body, because if you have a rigid body on the character and you just sync the transform, the character will start gliding off in some weird ways. So if you have a rigid body, yeah, you should sync the complete rigid body 3D. And then I haven't really messed with these settings, so I don't really know what they do. Then we have the rotation axis. How much of the character do you want to rotate? Ideally, you would just use the top-down 2D. In most cases, that'll be good. But since I haven't changed anything, and if you want to be careful, you would use this or something like this. But in most cases, you only need this right here. But just for demonstration purposes, I left it right here. And then you want to check this for the rotation, so it could sync your character's rotation a little bit better. And that's it for that. Then we have the script I created right here called Player Network Manager FP. Now I haven't gone over this before, but this character cannot work offline. And the reason is because it has all these network components. And these network components are designed to work online only. If you try to put this character in an offline game, it would just click that little enable button and it would make the character disappear. So if you want to use this character offline, you have to get rid of all this networking stuff, and that includes the player networking manager script too. So let's go over that. We just have our main camera, and then we have our rigid body controller, and that's basically it. Now I'll go over this a little bit later when I go into the scripts. Then we have our animator. You should know what the animator does already. Make sure that this isn't clicked. You make sure this is clicked off, or the character is going to be moving slow. Then we have our network animator. Now this is important right here because they've changed the way that the network animator works. And what it is in network, hold on, I'll go to it right here and help check for updates. Come on. Now in my last video, I've used the network component in Unity 5.1.2, I think it was F1. And they've changed the way the network animator works since then. They fixed a lot of bugs with the online stuff, and they've made the network animator work as it's supposed to. Now, when you hit this button right here, check for updates, it's not going to give you the most updated version. It's just going to say you have 5.1, okay, that's the most updated version, but it's not. The most updated version, I believe, is 5.1.2.4, and they've changed the way that network animator works. And they've improved it so much where all the glitches are gone. So before you do this, I suggest you go to the website and manually download the newest version, because if you just went here to check for updates, it's not going to give you the newest version. And the newest version, they fixed a lot of errors that was online. And the network animator, it used to only update 3 animations, and after that it just wouldn't do anymore, and a bunch of glitches. So just update to the newest one, and you have to do it manually. You have to go to their website and download the newest one. Okay, let's go to the simple animation script. This is just a simple animation script which I've made. Obviously you want to animate your character a lot better, but since this is a tutorial, I've just animated the character this way. And we have the animator and the rigid body controller, which is all we need. Now let's go over scene 2. all we have is this level geometry, which is just a bunch of prototype cubes, just to give you some idea of where the character spawns at, and a floor. Now this is all we need in here. We don't except the directional light and the start position, and the start position has the network start position script on it. Now in every one of your scenes that you're loading into, you want one of these, except the opening scene, and we don't want nothing else. Make sure there's no cameras, no network managers, or nothing in here. All we want is this empty game object with the network start position on here, and that controls where your character spawns at. So I'm telling my character to spawn right here. Now let's go to the scripts. First, we have this simple animation script which I made, and your character would be animated a lot better. I would hope that you animate your character a lot better, because I've done a kind of poor job on here, but I was just rushing just to get this tutorial out. But this script basically, it just accesses the rigidbody controller. Now if you're accessing it from JavaScript, you have to use this because the first person rigidbody, it has a namespace, so you have to access the namespace and then the script. So that's why this looks like that. You need the assets .characters .first person controller, blah blah blah. Yeah. And then we have the animator right here, and in the start function, it just gets the animator, which is a component, and then it sets up the rigid body, which is another component. And right here, we just say if the rigid body is mine, and that's a variable that I've created in when I've modified the rigid body first person controller script, which I'll go over in a minute. But it basically just tells if the character is mine or not. And then if it is, it just sets all these animations to false. And if I hit the up arrow, place forward animation, back arrow, left animation, right arrow, right animation. Let's go to the rigid body first person controller, which I've modified. And the only thing I've done is I've added this. I think I've added 3 lines of code. Yes, I've added this variable right here, which is mine, which just basically says, is the character mine or is it another player's? And that's how we can tell the difference. And I put it in the update function if is mine, and the fix update function if is mine. So it'll only run all this code right here in the update function, and all this code in the fix update function if the character is yours. Otherwise, you just won't run it at all. And that's how we separate control. Finally, we have this last script, which is the most important script, which is the player networking manager. Now it's important to note that I've named this class player networking manager FP. You will have to name the script the same. If you want to change the name of the script, you have to change the name of this right here. If you tried to name the script something different from the class, it just wouldn't work and it would give you an error. So make sure you name the script the same thing as this right here, player networking manager FP. And that FP just stands for first person. And we have our main camera, and we have our rigid body controller. I've already explained this right here, why it's like that. And the same thing in start function, it gets the rigid body controller, it gets the main camera, and then we have this variable, is it the local player. Now if you use the last system, this is the same as is mine. Now this is just used to tell, is it our player or is it another player from another network. And that's how Unity separates, is it your player on your network or another player. And we just say if it is our player, then tell the rigid body controller that it is mine. And if it's not our player, then turn the main camera off, turn the audio listener off, and tell the rigid body controller that it's not ours. And I believe that's it. Now my subscriber, he had I don't know if it's a he or not, but they had a problem with the spawning function, and I'll demonstrate that right now. Now right now I've just set it up so you can spawn in between the 2 cubes. Let's just start the game, host the game, and as you can see, we spawned in between the 2 cubes. Now I'm going to move the spawn point to demonstrate that it does work. You want to spawn in front of the cubes now. Let's save this scene. Oh, hit the wrong one. Okay. Hit play, and as you can see, we spawn differently. Now another important thing to note, that spot also controls the rotation of where you spawn at. So if you didn't want to spawn sideways like I did, you would just rotate it so it faced that, and that's about it. Now as always, all the assets I used are free and I don't own them. The links will be down in the description down below if you want to download it. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to suggest a tutorial, please suggest a tutorial in the comments down below. Thank you for watching.